everybody. And we're live. Tony Club, my friend, great to speak with you today. And we have a very specific point of this live stream, besides just to get to know you, which we're not going to have a whole lot of time to do today, unfortunately. Today, we're going to talk about SB 553, California's newest and toughest workplace violence prevention law. And the reason I'm speaking to you is very obvious, because you are our champion of the solution that we've created for this new law. You're going to be in charge of this whole department, and you're going to be a very busy guy. Before we get there, Tony Club, tell me about Tony Club so everybody watching knows who you are and why you are the guy most qualified to be spearheading this new project.
Perfect. Glad to be here, Mike. A little bit about myself. I was thinking about this the other day. I've actually been in a work environment that has a high potential for violence for over 30 years when I was thinking about it. This goes back to security work, bouncer work, loss prevention, and then most notably, I did over 24 years in a local law enforcement agency with a local probation department. And during that time, got to do a lot of unusual work as far as multiple task force, firearms instruction, defensive tactics instruction. But the big key for this type of the connection here is I did a tour as the human resources director for the department. So overseeing grievances, internal affairs investigations, HR complaints, dealing with collective bargaining units, the training unit, you name it, everything HR went through me, and that kind of gave me my nexus to this. And then when I decided to retire, I became a licensed private investigator, and I ended up meeting you at a conference. We talked just down the road from each other, so we kind of connected, and I jumped right into your first instructor course. Matter of fact, I was thinking about it today, and during a break, during that conference, you and I talked. I immediately bought your book, and during the conference, I think I spent more time reading the book that you wrote about surviving active shooter incidents than I did paying attention to what was being presented. So kind of sucked me into the program, and here we are today.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And you subsequently became a certified Alive instructor, so you can now teach the Alive method and program to anybody and everybody. You've done it many, many, many times and done a very good job. So I appreciate that. And that's why you're the guy most suited for this, because law enforcement, so you know about laws, you know about the workplace violence, you know about violence and countering violence, but you were directly involved with human resources. And those are going to be the people that this is going to stress out the most, frankly. You and I have been to seminars where legal teams came in to talk about this new law to people, and it literally scared the hell out of so many of these. And it was filled with HR people. And after seeing the presentation by these labor attorneys, they were just like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" I will personally say that this is probably, well, I don't want to talk too badly about our state government, but I think that they're really asking for a lot from California employers, and that what is being mandated in this law is going to add so much to the corporate HR manager's plate, and that it's going to be really, really difficult. And that is why we came up with this solution. Now, before we get into the solution, talk about SB 553. What does it demand? What are the fines? What has to be done? So our audience is going to be, let's say I'm an HR manager, and I say, Tony, I don't understand HB 553. Give it to me. So explain that.
Sure. So I think the intent has, it's a solid background based on statistics about workplace violence. They're trying to do a good thing, but I think it's gone a little bit, it's made it almost impossible for small businesses to incorporate something like this without consulting with somebody. So when you look at the legislation, just the basics, the basic requirements is you have to develop a workplace violence prevention plan. You have to develop a training program for your staff, and you have to keep a violent incident log. And then there's also criteria related to record retention for your violent incident logs, your training, your workplace violence prevention plan. And then they also have some collateral in each of those sections that you're required to do. And so a lot of people have a hard time when they first look at when face value, when they think, oh, I'm doing all these other HR jobs and now I have to do this too. And it's overwhelming when you start reading legislation and see everything that needs to be put in place for you to be compliant by July 1st, 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting it in a nutshell, now, HR person, you have to create a workplace violence prevention plan, which you may have already had as part of your, what is it? IIPW, whatever the hell.
IIPP, your injury illness prevention plan.
Yeah. So it might already have been part of that, but if not, let's say you're a small company, maybe you don't have an HR manager. Maybe you're an owner that you have to do this yourself. You have got to create a plan. You've got to then teach it to everybody in person. It can't be online. It can't be recorded. It can't be a video. It's got to be in person, because you have got to give your employees the ability to interact and ask questions and give feedback. You've got to teach it. You've got to keep records of, make sure everybody's learned it, and annually you've got to teach it again, year after year after year. It's got to include, and the wording in there basically describes active shooter training. It's what is the wording? How to respond to, shelter in place or whatever.
Yeah, you have to have a plan, effective training. And that's a big component. Every time they talk about something, it has to be what they deem as effective, but they don't define what effective is. But you have to train your staff on how to, your exit routes, how to escape from a situation, or if you can't escape, how to shelter in place. And you also have to train them up on, how do I get assistance from security, law enforcement? Do we have a special response team? You have to have that incorporated in your training, and it has to be, and this is a big component of as well, it has to be specific to your site. So we can no longer just have a workplace prevention plan that covers 3 different sites, all with different hazards, workplace hazards. This now has to be specific to each individual site, which creates even more headache for HR managers when you're trying to figure out, well, where can we use the same language or verbiage for our plan? And then where do we have to change it? Because maybe one's a yard that's open to the public and the other one's an admin building where it has a whole different series or set of hazards that they'll encounter.
Right. Yeah. And so there's that. So then you've got to put together the training presentation. You've got to deliver it. You got to keep records to make sure Cal OSHA knows that you did it. You've got to include active shooter training. Here's one that shocked me. You now have to conduct a physical security audit of your facilities. So every one of your buildings has to have a physical security audit. I don't know a whole lot of HR people that have been in our world and taught how to do a physical security audit. So that is going to be a massive issue. And then, of course, you got to be able to do an investigation of a complaint of workplace violence. You then have to have a report, and you have to have an incident log, which can't have any identifying information. So if Bill Smith reports that Jeff Franklin threatened him, and it can be just a threat of violence is considered workplace violence, and it must be listed, it must be recorded, it must be investigated, it must be addressed. All of that and a physical security audit, and you got to have records in case Cal OSHA shows up and says, okay, let's see if you're SB 553 compliant. And if you're not, at last we looked, or last we were told, the fines are anywhere from $17,000 to $23,000 per incident or something like that. I mean, this is a massive undertaking with some very serious consequences if you don't, adhere to it. And it starts July 1st of this year. If I was an HR person, I would be very stressed out right now, because that is a whole lot to do in a very short amount of time. Anything else? Like what else do they need to know about it, or what can they do to satisfy it?
Well, I think one of the things that you really have to start off with is the security assessment or inspection, where you identify what are the hazards. So then you can take your plan and make it specific to your location. So that's kind of like the first thing. And that's what everybody kind of steps back, because it's not their area of expertise and they kind of get stuck there. And then you start working your plan. Interesting component of SB 5532 is that they're very much into involving your employees or their collective bargaining units in not only the development of the plan, they need to be involved in that, however you determine it's appropriate, or their collective bargaining unit can represent the employees, but they also have to be involved in the development of training. So you've got to have your employees involved. And depending on the size of your organization, this can be a huge undertaking, how many people you involve in the process. It doesn't say all of their input has to be worked into it, but you do have to make sure that you address it.
Yeah, they have to feel listened to, because in California, everybody needs to have a voice. And I don't mean to be flippant, but as a businessman, a business person that owns a business and runs a business in California, already feeling overregulated, this is just crazy to me. But hey, what I think doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that these companies, fearing massive fines, have got to do what it takes to provide this physical security audit, active shooter training, create the training, give it, make sure you've got records available to prove, yes, we've done it annually. It's a lot. And obviously we've been getting calls like crazy because of what we've created. Why don't you go into the solution, because I would consider us a mid-sized business. We've got a lot of employees, but it's not like huge. It's not a massive, even a small business, probably even more so a small business with 10 employees. This is still a lot to do on top of what you're already supposed to do for the state of California, right? Talk about the solution that, with you at the helm doing most of the work, we have created. Very inexpensive, very effective, and do it yourself for HR managers that want to save money, but compile all this and do what needs to be done. So when Cal OSHA comes to their door, they can say, nope, look, we're responsible, we're diligent, we care about our employees, and we care about you, the state, making you happy.
Yeah, so we put together what we call a do-it-yourself plan, and with that comes not only instructions on legislation, what you need to put in place, but we've also offered a variety of templates within that package. So we give you the workplace violence prevention plan, a template. Now, you would have to take that, and based on your inspections, your assessments, you'd have to modify it to meet your specific needs. But we've gone through legislation to make sure that you're covered. We also have a template.
Hold on, let me stop you for a second. You're right, you do have to modify it, but the templates and documents that we give you the area that you plug it in. You plug in your information, you plug this in. It's all you're doing is taking your knowledge of your organization and putting it where it belongs. And we've already left that space open for you to do that. So it's super user friendly, right?
Yeah. And for an example, part of it is you have to train your employees on how they get access to the plan. So depending on what you do, some people may use a QR code. Some people may have it handed out in the break room, but you've got to outline exactly how they get access to it. And there's a couple other documents that they're supposed to have access to as well. In addition to that, we provide you a assessment/inspection form that you can use to go through to go ahead and set yourself up initially before you develop your plan. We also provide you an investigation template. Should you have an incident, how would you investigate it? We've really overbuilt a lot of the stuff we have to make sure that you're way more than just compliant. We've really addressed going above and beyond. And we also give you a template for the violent incident log that you have to maintain. And then we also have been looking at and putting together, part of legislation requires that you evaluate your plan at least annually. So when you're doing that, we give you a guide to go through the certain steps and check them off to make sure that you've done everything you're supposed to do to make sure that your plan is compliant with SB 553 and adequately addresses the hazards that your business or your facility may face. On that, when you're doing, let's say you put your plan together, and this is a little bit off topic to what we include, but we've got the stuff here for you to handle this in our package. If during the year you have an incident or someone recognizes a different hazard, then you need to develop a plan, almost like an addendum to your plan, where you can say, okay, here's how we're going to deal with this. And then in addition to that, you may need to provide training at that point in time. So at the end of the year, you're going to want to make sure you incorporate that into your next year's workplace violence prevention plan as a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it's, if anything changes and new, if new hazards are identified, now you have to go back in, change your plan and retrain, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's part of the requirement. And that's laid out there in legislation.
Yeah. Now, here's what we have already envisioned, and in fact, because we've been pre-selling for about a month. So what we have found is we wanted to just provide a very simple inexpensive downloadable solution to ease the pain, heartache, and stress. But what we have found is many of our clients now have gotten, and by the way, you forgot to say one of the most important things. In the solution, when you download it, it basically gives you all the information in the video so that you truly understand. I mean, we provide the actual text of the law, but then we, in layman's terms, explain this is what the law means, so that the HR manager or security manager, whoever's in charge, fully understands the law rather than just taking our word for it. And I think that's really important, because me, as a control freak, I want to know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing before I say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll use your product and fill it out and that'll be good enough. I want to make sure that that's good enough. But what we're finding is, after they download it, they go, oh, okay, now I understand it. This I can do, but I don't know the first thing about a physical security audit. Can you guys do that for us? Well, it just so happens we've been doing that for about, 58 years, I think it is, since my dad started the company. So yes, we can do that. The active shooter training portion is no problem at all. We do that all the time in 6 countries. But it's important for potential clients to know we're not going to just, you can't just download this thing and then you're thrown to the wolves. If there's a portion of it you don't want to do, or you want to do it all, or you want us to do it all, we can do that, right? And you having your training, you could literally show up at XYZ company and take our documents, fill them out by questioning the HR manager or whoever is necessary. We've already got a PowerPoint template that you would just literally plug that information into. You could put everybody in the training room, give them the training, walk around and do the security assessment with our very cool automated tool that we use that then spits out this really comprehensive report, and then say, okay, now HR manager, everything is done. Here are your record logs. You log everything. That's what you need to do. Or you can call us and we can do it for you, but you're there and it's very easy and save some money. But literally, the point is, anybody that's feeling anxiety from knowing they're going to have to comply with this law, relax. Either download our do-it-yourself solution and do it yourself, or have us come do it. We've got you. This is what we do. Workplace violence training is one of our biggest things that we do, and we're good at all over the country, but especially California. So any other thoughts on this? The program, the law, the nightmares and lost sleep these poor HR people are going to experience?
Yeah, I would say, I think I started to touch on it and then we got sidetracked. Our plan does include the PowerPoint template. It's much like the workplace violence prevention plan. You need to add in a few specifics to your organization, but the PowerPoint is there for you, and it comes with our plan. So that would be the big thing. I think don't be afraid of SB 553, but definitely get into it and see what you're capable of and where we can help you.
Yep.
We're more than willing and able to do it.
And one thing I want to mention, I put right there on the screen, you can email SB553 at aliveactiveshooter.com for more information. May 21st at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are having we're doing a webinar, and it's free, and we're going to basically go over SB 553 so that anybody that attends will understand what they have to do, how they have to do it, whether they use us or they could do it themselves. If they want to create all those documents and all that stuff themselves, more power to them. They'll save $1,000, but they'll lose a lot of sleep, and everything that's included. So we will on May 21st at 11 a.m. Email SB553 at a live active shooter, or go to activeshootersurvivaltraining.com, go to training, go to the SB553 page and get all the information. But we'll get you signed up for that webinar if you want to know more. Tony, listen, I want to appreciate you. You are a superstar in my book. I'm so happy to have you running this program and this project. Because there is nobody more knowledgeable than you when it comes to satisfying all of these crazy new requirements put on by the state of California. And for everybody watching and anybody that wants to be involved, we look forward to working with you to relieve the stress that you are going to experience because of this new law. So next time, Tony, thank you so much. And everybody else, I hope we see you soon on May 21st at 11 a.m. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.